We're in an incredibly dangerous place in America right now. And today's ruling is an important wake up call for the United States president. No president is allowed to make up facts or rely on social media trolling or posts when deploying the United States military in our cities. It's an incredibly dangerous precedent to set in America, and today's ruling halts what appears to be the president's attempt to normalize the United States military in our cities. And it couldn't be said better than in the first paragraph of the judge's ruling, and I want to read that. Whether we choose to follow what the Constitution mandates with respect to these relationships goes to the heart of what it means to live under the rule of law in the United States. We're a mere 9 months into the president's term. The President of the United States has sent the United States military to California, Washington, D.C., Memphis. There are orders today to go to Illinois, and he's attempting to do it here in Oregon. Earlier this week, the president said that he wanted to train our United States military in our American cities. Mobilizing the United States military in our cities is not normal. It should not be normal, and we will fight to make sure that it is never normal. Yesterday, staff and attorneys at the Oregon Department of Justice presented facts to the court that the president had not met the standards required by Congress to federalize the National Guard. An invasion, a rebellion, or that the president was unable to execute the laws of the United States. The federal government, with a straight face, looked the judge in the eyes and said that a threat of a rebellion or a rebellion itself justified the federalization of the National Guard here in Oregon. Anyone that has walked the streets in Portland knows that there is no rebellion going on here in Oregon. Judge Ehrmergut ultimately agreed with us and granted the temporary restraining order today, effectively stopping the president from federalizing the National Guard. Today's ruling is a healthy check on the president's power. And as the president, you must have an actual facts based on reality, not social media or just your gut feeling if you want to mobilize the military here in the United States. We have expected from day one that this ruling will be appealed to the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals. We anticipate that still to be the case. Oregonians should know that we have amazing staff and lawyers at the Oregon Department of Justice working on your behalf and are working constantly to defend Oregon and its values. From the beginning, our staff has been working nonstop so that we could get this case in front of a judge before the National Guard was deployed into our streets. And I'm very grateful to be a part of this team, everybody working on behalf of all Oregonians. And we will continue fighting for Oregonians every single day. As this case progresses through the court system, we're asking everyone to respect the ruling, protest peacefully, and be respectful to all of the dedicated law enforcement and National Guards members that serve our great state. Essentially, be Oregonians. We're kind people. We're courteous folks. We respect our differences. We're a little bit weird sometimes. We love our blazers, we love our beavers, and sometimes maybe we just love our ducks. With that, we'll continue to update you as this continues to progress through the court system. This ruling will stay in effect for 14 days, where we will be back in front of the judge to continue pursuing this order as it moves forward. With that, I would like to go ahead and turn it over to the mayor for his comments.
Good afternoon, everybody, and thank you. The governor was unable to join us today, but thank you, Attorney General Rayfield. Well done. And we appreciate you standing and defending our values along with all Portlanders. I want to take a moment and give special thanks to our legal team, the Portland City Attorney Robert Taylor, and then those that helped us litigate this, Portland Senior Deputy City Attorney Caroline Turco, and the Oregon Department of Justice Senior Assistant Attorneys General Scott Kennedy and Brian Marshall. The professionalism and the precision that they were able to apply yesterday was impressive and needed at this particular time. Today's decision reaffirms what we've long maintained: the federal government overstepped its authority. As the judge noted in her decision, we provided substantial evidence that the protests at the Portland ICE facility were not significantly violent or disruptive in the days or even the weeks leading up to the president's directive on September 27. Put simply, we won through peace. And we've shown we can hold those who engage in violence or destruction accountable. I've said from the very beginning, the number of federal troops that are needed or wanted is 0. We accomplish more when we're together, and we accomplish far more when we are peaceful, purposeful, and we focus on the legal process than we ever could simply just lashing out. We will continue to intervene when we see law-breaking behavior, just as we'll continue supporting the First Amendment rights of free expression. It is clear that deploying unaccountable federal troops and forces only inflames tensions. It disrupts local businesses and diverts resources from the pressing need of our neighbors and neighborhoods. It's time to fund our roads and bridges, help build houses. It's time to fund schools and healthcare instead of sending agents or troops. My focus as mayor is simple: keep our communities safe and our Oregon National Guard serving Oregonians. They're our neighbors and a resource in times of great need, not being used as political props. Securing a temporary restraining order was a necessary step, but our work to protect Portland immigrant communities must continue. The conduct of federal agents at the ICE facility remains troubling. We've seen disturbing and unacceptable acts of unprovoked violence without accountability. I call on all federal law enforcement to meet the high standards set by the Portland Police Bureau. We need them to focus on transparent use of force, clear officer identification, strict limits on chemical munitions, and mandatory body-worn cameras. The Federal Protective Service's core values are service, integrity, honor, and vigilance. Now is the time to live up to those principles, not erode them with masks and violence. Anyone willing to lend a hand to Portland has a seat at our table, including the federal government. Federal resources should expand affordable housing, boost economic opportunity, and strengthen social services, not undermine local governance, escalate conflict, or divert attention from the real needs of our communities. Portland will use every tool at our disposal to defend the Constitution and protect the rights of every resident. So thank you for this opportunity.
Now the Attorney General and Mayor will take questions. So if you have a question, please use the raise hand function and I will call on folks one at a time. Please also share your name and the outlet that you're with. First, I see Celine Stevens.
Hi, thank you so much for holding this briefing and taking our questions. My first question is, how soon will we know what happens with these troops? I know Senator Merkley said they were on the coast training. Just what's in their future? Do they wait there until the 14 days pass? Kind of what's in the future for the troops?
Yeah, and effectively the order would place the National Guard back under the command of the governor at this time. I think, as you saw in some analogous cases in California, the temporary restraining order was immediately appealed up to the Ninth Circuit. We will see whether the federal government wants to appeal this ruling up, and depending on how some of these things go, you might get an administrative stay of the ruling. We'll see how these facts unfold, but it's a little bit uncertain on how that'll definitively unfold.
Next, we have K2.
Hi there. I'm so sorry. I was just figuring out my camera. What comes next once the Trump administration either appeals or doesn't? And also, since it was the injunction granted on the TRO, technically they could come later, right? Or another time. What is the plan for that?
Right. And we're focused in the moment right now of what's going on in the ground and talking about the facts and the reality here in Portland as it stands. And so the current temporary restraining order will last for 14 days. We will be back in front of the judge asking for an extension of that, ultimately getting to the 26th of October so we can get a preliminary injunction, which will last a longer period of time. As in the California case, the federal government could try and appeal this ruling earlier on, although I believe they're going to need to procedurally wait until we actually have a preliminary injunction.
Next, I see Joni Land from OPB. And Joni, we can't hear you. So while Joni figures out her tech, let's go to Matt Shepard from K2.
Hi there. Thank you for taking the time to do this. Mayor Wilson, my question for you is, you mentioned the conduct of federal law enforcement officials at the ICE facility. My question for you would be the conduct of some of the protesters we've seen down there. We've seen multiple protesters blocking the driveway of the ICE facility, trying to prevent them from doing their job, as well as screaming in the faces of law enforcement officials. What's your message to those protesters who are engaged in that behavior?
Well, first and foremost, Portland is a peaceful city. We advocate and we want peace and calm. We don't certainly want anything to escalate this at this time. It's not so much their conduct as I'm just asking for the entire city to just de-escalate and to disengage from the ICE facility. Today was a good day. Peace wins today. Fact matters. Facts matter. That's what we need to focus on today. So we just need to de-escalate and step away from that event. We don't want to incite or have any interactions with ICE at this time.
All right, thank you. I appreciate that.
Let's come back to Joni from OPB.
Can you hear me now?
Yes.
Yeah.
Thank you so much. Sorry about that. My question is, what if the Trump administration does not follow the order? If that happens, what are ways that the state of Oregon could fight that, or the city of Portland?
Yeah, and this is something we've talked a lot about from the going all the way back to January. What I can say consistently, when we've had definitive orders coming from the bench, for the most part, the Trump administration has followed those orders. There are some where I believe that they have played fast and loose with the facts. And that's incredibly polite with how I feel on some of the more gray areas. This ruling was very clear and definitive, and I would expect the Trump administration to follow the order coming from the bench. If it were something unusual to happen where they were not to follow this order, there are additional proceedings that we can take up with the bench where we can hold the Trump administration accountable, contempt proceedings, and the like. Although, again, as history has indicated with the other court rulings that the state of Oregon has been successful in, they have followed those rulings.
Next, Alex Baumhart.
Hi. Sorry if I'm doubling down on anything somebody else has asked before. Have either of you been in touch with Governor Pritzker in Illinois? And do you have any sense that he's about to walk down the same path you just walked down?
What I have not had any contact with the governor. We regularly are in contact with Democratic attorneys general across this country as we work together to hold the line, what is right now becoming this normalization of the United States military in our cities. And so I know AG Raoul in Illinois is working hard to protect his citizens over there, and I assume he's doing that in concert with the governor. But again, that was some facts that we learned this morning that was going on. Again, eerily similar to what's going on here in Oregon. I don't know what the specifics or the facts on the ground in Illinois, obviously. We've been laser focused here in Oregon.
Yeah, I haven't had any conversations with the governor, but I did have a meeting this week with Mayor Johnson, my counterpart in Chicago, just to compare notes. And he's been experiencing this heightened sense of awareness for the last couple of months, where this has been relatively new for us. But it's disheartening to see our cities being used as military targets when we should be focusing on delivering service to our constituents as opposed to readying our communities for things that aren't helping us move forward.
And can I ask really quickly while I have you, during the hearing, it sounded like the lawyers for the government were trying to ask the judge not to expand the temporary restraining order beyond Portland, to make it limited to Portland. Do you understand, or do you know why that is? Or I guess as a non-lawyer reading the tea leaves here, is this sort of ginning up the federal government? I guess they're interested in other parts of Oregon.
It's tough to know exactly why the federal government does anything. For instance, as a lawyer, I would never sit there and talk about the president's Truth Social and some of my opening comments. So there's a little bit of absurdness to the reality that's going on in our courts right now. And so I'm not really sure exactly what's behind their thoughts.
But this is just limited to Portland, right?
Correct.
Okay. So I guess, do you prepare for the worst case scenario being they go to other parts of Oregon?
Well, and here's the thing. This court ruling shows that you have to have the prerequisites to be able to federalize the National Guard. That's what Congress intended. That's what should happen, right? And so if we did have a significant event in Eastern Oregon where the president meet the conditions to federalize the National Guard, that's what Congress intended. That's what the statute is for. So this is really limited to the set of circumstances that we're addressing here in Portland right now. And that's why it's confined. And should be, because it makes sense to be confined to that. If they were to violate this statute again, you better believe that we would have a lawsuit in the court in no time challenging it once again.
Gotcha. Thank you.
All right. The next hand I see is from Maxine Bernstein.
Thank you. I just have a legal procedural question. The judge's order says that she's set for October 29th, a combined hearing on the preliminary injunction motion and a trial on the merits. So could that lead to a injunction that's not preliminary, that's a final injunction?
Yes, and that is exactly what the 29th is intended. That's kind of your longer proceedings where you would get finality on the order. Obviously, once you start getting finality in the case like that, that's when these things start getting appealed. And that's what we would expect at that time if we're successful during that hearing.
Thank you.
All right. Next up, Dietrich Nauth from Reuters.
Hi, I saw this was a ruling from a Trump-appointed judge. Does that give you any comfort that, the Republican-appointed judge is willing to uphold the rule of law in this case?
What I would tell you is, I really have always disliked calling judges a Trump-appointed judge or a Democrat president-appointed judge because it really, I think, goes against this notion that we're supposed to have an independent judiciary. I think we live in a time where people are looking for third-party validators, and we really start grasping onto this. But I have this belief that when most lawyers and judges get put on the bench, they put the robe on and they do their absolute best as human beings to discard that bias that we just have sometimes in our personal lives. So it is what I hope a message to people that start to question the independence of our judiciary, because we have a president that wants to attack that because he does not like the orders that are coming out of the bench. Hopefully this is a testament to those folks to give a little bit more confidence in our judiciary, that people are willing to exercise their independence as jurists and actually apply the rule of law in this country, because that is the backstop to this expansion of executive power that has been unprecedented over the last 9 months.
Right. I don't see any more hands, but if you have a question, please. Oh, Celine Stevens from KGW again. Go ahead.
Hi, apologies if this has already been answered. This is just for my own understanding. Is there any potential for the Trump administration to, let's say, file some form of appeal, let's say in the next couple of days, and then while that's in motion, keep on the plan with the troops? Is that something that could happen, or do we have to follow the October 17th deadline and then go from there?
There is a possibility that they could try and appeal this temporary restraining order. That's what they did in California. The difference between California and Oregon is that our temporary restraining order is limited to 14 days, which in theory limits the ability of this to be appealed, although lawyers will be lawyers, and there's a possibility that the federal government could wish to appeal this, and we will then make those arguments. And what that would be a administrative process where they would, in procedural process where they would try and pause this temporary restraining order while this case continues towards a ruling on the merits.
Thank you.
All right, we've got time for maybe two more questions. Dietrich, I see your hand again.
Yeah, just to follow up on the appeals. I mean, one of the things which was striking to me about the Ninth Circuit decision in the California appeal on the TRO, there wasn't as much evidence put in about what was happening on the ground. So the decision there was very colored by the Trump administration's point of view on the level of violence in Los Angeles. Do you feel like in the Ninth Circuit you would be bound by the existing precedent on the Trump's authority to call in the National Guard, or do you think the facts that you've brought up early in this case give you a stronger hand if it comes to the same Ninth Circuit panel?
What we've said in this case from day one is that the facts in this case are overwhelmingly strong, and the judge agreed. And really what you have to look at, the most compelling facts that the Trump administration had was back in June. And you don't get to look back several months and then all of a sudden start to deploy your troops, multiple months later, saying that that justified the existence. Also, the scope and nature of what had occurred within the last month is vastly different. If you look at the ruling by the judge, she'll note that, hey, there were some flashlights, aggressive flashlights in the eyes of some of these individuals working at the ICE facility, or a photo was posted online. And the only violent act was done upon not an ICE member, but it was somebody else nearby. And so there's a little bit of distinction in the facts that are incredibly important in this case, which is why we felt strong at this lower court level. And should it go up to the Ninth Circuit, we feel confident moving forward as well.
Right, we've got time for one more question. I see no hands, but I'll give it a beat here. All right, seeing no more hands, Attorney General and Mayor, I will turn it back to you for closing remarks if you have them.
No, again, I would just say I think the partnership with the governor's office, partnership with the mayor's office and their team of attorneys, and then truly, it's always humbling to be a part of state service and see the amazing people that do the work on the ground, that will work through the weekend, through the evenings, because they believe the work that is being done on behalf of all Oregonians. So proud to be a part of their team, and I'll turn it over to the mayor.
Yeah, and AG, I just want to thank you and your team, the governor as well, for helping us through this very difficult time. I just want everybody to know Portland is a peaceful city. This narrative was manufactured. The actual facts on the ground are one of peace. We haven't had the issues that were created in the national narrative. We knew this locally, and our attorneys successfully were able to make that compelling argument yesterday. And today's temporary restraining order is validation that it's time for us to move forward and that facts matter. And I'm grateful for the team. I'm grateful for the citizens for the peaceful protests, and just continue to ask that we continue to show up peacefully and focus on calm in our city, and we'll move past and close this chapter and move on.
Great. Thank you all for being here. Have a great evening.
Thank you, AG.
Good to see you, Mayor.